enjoyed that. I felt like it was so real and easy to envision. That was very wordy. See what it is, I don't want to spoil things too much, but there's a big surprise how this goes, because this is actually the second time I'm filming this, because for some reason the shot I had last time, I was like in the bottom corner of the video the whole time, so who knows what was going on there. Hi, I'm Gabrielle. I like to make a lot of random videos about books I enjoy reading, new authors I find, and all that good stuff. I mostly read fantasy-focused books, but today I'm going to be talking about a romance book that I read recently that I really enjoyed, and I thought that you might like as well. Recently, I picked up Happy Place by the author Emily Henry, and I really enjoyed it. I hadn't read anything by Henry before picking up Happy Place, and she's published a few other books that are really popular, but I was very pleasantly surprised with Happy Place. I didn't have high or low expectations going into it. I just kind of had mid expectations, I guess, and I thought it was really well done. So I'll share a little bit about the plot and kind of my thoughts and see if you are interested in it. If you have read Happy Place or any of Henry's other books, definitely let me know down below, because one thing I was really interested in after reading Happy Place was whether her other books have the same style of writing as this one, and I will be really interested to see myself, especially because I did purchase Book Lovers a few weeks ago and I was planning to read it before this one, so I'm happy that I enjoyed this first one that I picked up. But before I go more into my thoughts, I'll tell you a bit about the plot. So the story follows our main character, Harriet. She lives in San Francisco and she's doing a residency to become a surgeon, I believe, some kind of doctoral residency. And all of her friends live on the East Coast in New York area, upstate and city. And they all went to college together in Vermont at one point. And so the book kind of centers around her and this friend group and the experiences that they've had. And so each chapter is structured based off of whether a place is a happy place or a dark place for Harriet. And they are kind of set scenes related to, what the significance of the place was to her. The story really kicks off when Harriet is arriving to one of her best friends' beach house in Maine, as this is a week-long summer trip that the whole friend group does. So in terms of how Harriet grew up, she didn't have abusive parents or an absolutely terrible relationship with her parents, but it is sort of described as a cold, unloving relationship, in the sense that they never really had a connection, her parents and her sister. None of them were really ever cohesive. She always felt the house was so quiet because her parents had a lot of struggles with her older sister and her sister kind of rebelling. And her parents also, they both, they got pregnant with her older sister shortly after they met. And so they then committed to being together, getting married, having a family together. But she always felt there was a little bit of a resentment for them to each other and the life that they've lived. And therefore that kind of burden of making her parents feel that their sacrifices were worth it has fallen onto Harriet. That was very wordy. So when she went to college at Masterly College in Vermont, Harriet met her two roommates, and they have become the absolute best friends that are even closer than family. And those are the three that have now started this week-long tradition of going to one of the friends' Maine's beach house. And it's that is Harriet's number one happy place in the world. She always looks forward to this trip where they can just be free and connect with each other and do their traditions and have a lot of fun. However, when she gets to the beach house for this summer's trip, her ex-fiance is there as well. Now, her ex-fiance used to be a part of the friend group because it's since expanded to add on the three's significant others, but they don't know, the other members of the group don't yet know that he is her ex-fiance. They think he's still her fiance because Harriet hasn't told them, and they broke up like 6 months prior to this trip. So he's there because like he was pressured to come, and because one of the friends was saying like, oh, this is so important, and Harriet's there and is surprised by him being there. And then the whole group learns by the one friend whose house it is that there's this big surprise happening at the end of the week. I won't say what it is because I don't want to spoil things too much, but there's a big surprise. So Harriet and Wynne, her ex-fiance, agree to continue pretending to each other that things were okay between them because they didn't want to spoil and ruin the surprise and the week for everybody by saying like, oh, our relationship's done, like the friend group is in jeopardy, basically. So thus starts a whole week full of trials and tribulations between Harriet and Wynne, but we also learn that there is a bit of drama within the friend group itself. We get a lot of flashbacks into how the relationship form amongst the friend group itself, as well as Harriet and Wynne. We get some flashbacks to Harriet's life growing up with her parents and how their relationship has become what it is now. And yeah, overall the story is a really great tale of like how interpersonal relationships are so complex, and how like what might work for one person may not for another, but that ultimately it's up to us to choose our own path, even if others may feel like they have a responsibility for us to choose an option that they would want. I hope that makes sense. Get my water. So yeah, just to not keep things super long, but I really enjoyed this. I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh, this is the best book I've ever read, or even like, oh, this is one of the top romance books I've ever read. But something about it just made it super enjoyable. So ultimately I ended up rating it 4 out of 5 stars. I think maybe if it had been more like emotionally compelling for me, maybe I would have given it 5, but 4 for me is like really great. And so yeah, I loved it. I really enjoyed the way that Henry started each chapter. For example, she would, at the start of each new chapter, she would give a location of where it was within the US and indicate whether it was a happy or a dark place for Harriet. And then she would start by setting the scene for that place. And she would do it in a way where I'm sure there's like a name for what this is in literature, but it was a lot of like incomplete sentences that kind of felt like her writing how one perceives a scene in real life, in the sense that, you know, when you're looking around a room, like you're seeing dark wooden frames and green rug, light shining in from the window, like you're seeing things in individual pieces when you see a scene, and they all come together to make up this scene. Oh my god, just count how many times I'm saying scene. But that was how Henry was writing those scenes. So it would be, you know, like for this beach house in Maine, that's Harriet's happy place. She might say something like, the sound of seagulls cawing, the sticky feeling of cotton candy melting on your fingertips, the chime of the Ferris wheel spinning a circle. Like it was more well done than what I just did, but that's like an example of how she would set the scene. And I just really enjoyed that. I felt like it was so real and easy to envision what like she was depicting in writing that way, and I really liked it. And like her choice of words, I really enjoyed, especially. Similarly, I also felt like all of the characters in this story also felt very real. Like I could imagine them being real people and being real friends, and it was easy to believe what I was reading, or ingest it, I should say, because it just felt like, oh yeah, I could imagine that being the case for somebody, or like I could imagine this group existing. And so yeah, it all just felt so like easy, and I found that I had no problem finishing the book in the 2 days that I had allotted to finish it, because it was just so easy to read. And yeah, I don't know if I even mentioned, so I received the book to check it out, and the Libby app only gave me 2 weeks to read it because there was a long waiting list of people trying to check it out. But at the time I checked it out, I then had like 2 weeks of work and personal travel following. So by the time I got home, I only had the last 2 days of the rental to read it. And so I was like, okay, let me do this. Like, this is gonna be my mission. I'm gonna read the book in 2 days and boom. But I didn't even really have to like force myself to get through it or anything because I was just loving it the whole time. But yeah, I think that's kind of all. I don't want to be super long-winded, but if you've read Happy Place or if you've read any other of Henry's books, let me know. Also, what are you choosing to read as like your little light summer read? Because you gotta have at least one. So what are you gonna read this summer? But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll hope to talk to you more in the comments below, and I'll see you in another video soon.